Good evening. I'd like to call to order the January 27, 2021 meeting of the Sebastian City Council, as well as the Community Redevelopment Agency. If you'd stand for invocation by Pastor John Gill and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Mayor Hill.
Let us pray. Holy and loving God, we ask your blessings on the people who have been called to lead our Sebastian community, the city in which we live and work and play. As they grapple with difficult decisions, help them to listen to the whisper of your still small voice and follow the leading of your Holy Spirit. Remind them that they are not only leaders but also servants, that their responsibility to serve the common good of all. Remind them that all who reside in Sebastian, no matter their status, race, national origin, or creed, are our neighbors, our sisters and brothers. Remind us all that throughout the ages, prophets have called the leaders of the people to respect and protect the least of those among us, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind, or spirit, the stranger in our midst, those who live on the margins, those who are alone, and those who are forgotten. Grant these city leaders the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they speak out when it's time to speak out, and listen patiently and receptively when it's time to listen. May they always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and the spirit of love. This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, the God of all, who is good and right and true. Amen. God, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's have the roll call, please.
Mayor Dodd?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hill?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Councilmember McPartland?
Here.
Councilmember Nunn?
Here.
Thank you.
Council, are there any agenda modifications anyone would like to make? All right, seeing none, then we have a proclamation. This is a proclamation recognizing the retirement of Kip G. Kelso Jr., Sebastian Municipal Cemetery Supervisor. Whereas Kip G. Kelso Jr. began his career with the City of Sebastian in October of 1983, starting in the grounds maintenance, and has worked continuously in the cemetery division, all the while accepting new responsibilities and challenges to become the cemetery supervisor and sexton. And whereas Mr. Kelso helped introduce the columbarium niches to the cemetery, the first in Indian River County at the time, and whereas Mr. Kelso has been instrumental in developing survey mapping, marking, and the irrigation of the cemetery grave sites. And whereas most recently Mr. Kelso has been a key planner in the current expansion and development of the cemetery property to include new roadways and irrigation. Now, therefore, I, Ed Dodd, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor and on behalf of the Sebastian City Council, do hereby express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to Kip G. Kelso Jr. for his 37 years of dedicated service to the city. We wish Mr. Kelso and his family the very best in retirement. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Sebastian to be affixed this 27th day of January 2021. Good round of applause for Kip. Just so everybody knows, this cup says the legend has retired. That's for you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this.
We'll do that also. Here.
Okay. That's gonna work. Okay.
Let Andy get one. Do you want to take a picture? Would you like to say something?
Yes, I will.
I'll let you have the mic.
Okay. I would like to say in my tenure here, it's been a learning experience, and I would tell you that it's been fun throughout all these years, and I've learned a lot, okay? And I'll say one thing. I learned how to be a team player, and that's the best part I could say for the city.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Baker. I'm the Public Facilities Director, and for the last 3 years, I've had the privilege of working with Kip at the cemetery. Kip, you've led a remarkable achievements working for the cemetery, at the cemetery for 37 years. Done an outstanding job, and you've done Sebastian proud. And we'd like to give you this desk memento, so as your memory starts to fade, you can see where you were at.
Is this the next step to where I have one of my lots?
Yeah.
It says, best wishes on your retirement, your knowledge, commitment, and presence. You will be greatly missed by the community and by your peers.
I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody.
I know, but how do you turn it off? I did it and it didn't work. Let me see. See?
Okay. Does it work? All right. Okay, we're going to go on to brief announcements. On January 30th, the Sebastian River Art Club show at Riverview Park will take place between 10 and 4 p.m. On February the 5th, the concert in the park at Riverview Park at 5:30. Johnny and the Belize, it's a Motown rock group, are going to be there. And that's all the announcements, unless any members of the council have an announcement they'd like to make. Okay, see none. We're now up to public input. This is opportunity for anyone from the public who wants to address anything that's not on the agenda. I don't know if we have any Zoom people. I didn't see anybody outside, so anybody outside? Yes, sir, if you'd like to come forward.
My name is Mark Leslie, and I live at 125 Elkin Place. You want to see my map?
You can.
Is
You can. Make
Yeah.
it easier to hear.
Well, my neighbor, and
Just a second, sir. Barbara, is that mic on? It is, okay. Go ahead.
I know this is mostly a yard thing, but his yard is such a disgrace to the city of Sebastian. And for someone who's the city manager, he shows no pride. I invite you to come out to my house on the southwest corner of my house and look what I have to look at every day. I've asked him to clean it up. It's overgrown, dead vegetation everywhere, wires going out to his satellite dish. He still has his hurricane panels up for 2 years now. And I thought there was a code that they're supposed to be taken down a couple of weeks after the hurricane season's over. But that's not my main thing. What I want you to look at is when his contract comes up for renewal, this man does the bare minimum to get by. And I want you to look at that, see if he's doing that the same at work. Because he does the bare minimum at his house. And I can't see where it's going to be that much of a difference. And that's what I have to say.
Okay.
So I've asked you to come out
All right.
and look.
Once you get a city manager's card, have you contacted him on this?
I emailed him
It's his
telling him
neighbor.
I was
Okay.
even gonna come here.
All right,
And I gave him 30 days, and I've actually given him 2 months.
okay.
And all he did was spray weed killer and kill it all. Now it's all overgrown again.
Yeah,
So, but I'm saying there's wires, his hurricane panels are up, everything, so.
All
It's
right.
a disgrace.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to bring forward? I have one person on Zoom. Okay.
Robert Stevens.
Are you there, Mr. Stevens?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for letting me speak. Mr. Mayor, I have a question here. Why was the newspaper posting of the notice of comprehensive land use map amendment printed in such minuscule font? Don't understand that. You don't have to answer that, I guess. Could it be that such tiny print deters the citizens of Sebastian from reading it, or is it like the fine print found on contracts, put there to hide information? I don't understand. I couldn't understand that whole contract. I couldn't see it, got my magnifying glass out, you know. But I did read what I did have. I didn't see that there was any low impact development talk about or any carbon footprint concerns. I'm just concerned about that. I'll move along here. I have another question here. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Why did you sign a 3-year contract for spraying the Agent Orange type cocktail along our waterways and in our parks, knowing fully well that it kills birds, fish, animals, little dogs maybe, people, babies, indiscriminately? I guess I understand now it's dicot instead of the glyphosate, which I think is worse, but Debbie, be quiet. It distresses me. Sharon, would you help with his dog? Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. It distresses me to see people walking in these sprayed parks not knowing that their little Fifi is covering their paws with poisons and then tracks it into the house and cleans them off. That's not good stuff. And may I suggest, Mr. Mayor, you provide walkers in our parks with a pair of binoculars so they can read the spraying notices posted 12 feet in the air, written in the same minuscule font your newspaper postings are. Enough for me tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone else on Zoom?
Not at this time.
No? Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you for the public input. We're now on to item 8, the consent agenda. There's one item, item A, which is the approval of the minutes from our January 13th meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second down there, okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, 9A, we have an opening on a construction board. If I read this correctly, the city clerk has advertised that, and one person, Christopher Roberts, has applied to fill that opening.
He's on Zoom?
You have two?
No, he's on Zoom.
Oh, he's on Zoom? Okay. Does anyone here like to carry on a conversation or ask questions of Mr. Roberts?
I move Mr. Roberts retain his seat. He's currently on there, is that not correct?
No, he'll be a new one.
New
Oh,
member?
okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd move Mr. Roberts.
Okay. Do you have a second on that?
A second.
All right. Then we'll do that under unanimous consent. Mr. Roberts is appointed.
Thank you.
Okay. And now we're on to public hearings. This is item 10A. I'll let the city attorney read the title on this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida, amending the City of Sebastian's comprehensive plan in its entirety, excluding the economic development element, pursuant to 163.3184 sub 3 Florida statute, providing for adoptions of the City of Sebastian Comprehensive Plan 2040, including amendments to the land use element and the future land use map, the transportation and mobility element, the housing element, the infrastructure element, the conservation and coastal management element, the parks, recreation, and open space element, the governance and implementation element, and the public school element, inclusive of all associated tables, exhibits, and maps, authorizing finding and administrative action, providing for transmittal, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of ordinance inconsistent with this ordinance, providing for a scrivener's error, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to open this up to the city staff to do a presentation, and then following that, we'll take public comment, and then if there's a need, we'll let the staff respond to the public comment when that takes place. So let's let the staff do their presentation.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Frazier, and our consultant Kimberly Horn is here to go over the elements of the plan, kind of give an overview. We've had multiple public hearings and public workshops, not hearings, but public workshops, public input on this process. It's been long and daunting, and I think we've got a good product here, and we're looking for your support.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. We're actually very excited to be here finally at this point in our comprehensive plan journey. In front of you, I'm just going to give you a little prompts so that you know exactly what you have in front of you. If you recall, back in October, and this is what I delivered to you all 2 weeks ago, back in October you had received the final version with the matrix, and then a little later on you received the map series. All of this was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as went through public scrutiny in our public engagement workshop that we held, was that December 2nd? I can't recall now. So all of those comments are now incorporated into the edited version that you all received 2 weeks ago. So this has all of the changes that came about after what you received in October. Does that make sense, I hope? These are just the changes that you all directed us to make, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as any public comments. So we just gave you the edited version of that. What will be transmitted up to the DEO will be the complete bound version of all 8 elements, as well as the map series, as well as the matrix, with any changes that may be in there. From here, if you all approve the transmittal of this proposed comprehensive plan tonight, we will transmit it up to DEO, as well as distribute it to all of our stakeholders within 10 working days. At that point, the stakeholders have 30 days to get their comments to DEO. DEO has 60 days to get their comments, recommendations back to us. So I want you all and the public to be very much aware that we still have a 60-day window should anyone get the opportunity to review anything and bring it to our attention. And in fact, I'm not sure if Mr. Jones had received my email response back you had. It was a very nice review and some great catches by Mr. Jeremy Edwardson with the Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge, and we appreciate his review of our document and coming up with some great catches, which we will incorporate into the plan. So I just wanted to give you some bit of flavor of what happens after this evening, should you approve for us to, approve the ordinance for us to transmit this proposed plan to the DEO.
Can I clear something up before you go any further? It says in the agenda packet this is the first reading of that ordinance. And what I'm hearing the Growth Management Director say is that if we approve it tonight, she will transmit it. Is this, in fact, the first reading and we have to do a second reading before it can be transmitted, or in fact, are we approving the transmission tonight?
So you do all that leads to go into more detail of that, but you do the first reading and then you have a review period. but you have to submit after the first reading, I believe 10 days. After you do the first reading, you have to submit it. And then it goes through a 60-day review process.
So is the second reading after the review process?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't continue on.
Okay,
I
I'm sorry.
apologize.
I didn't want to, I did.
No,
I'm sorry.
no, and thank you. I was done at that point, yes. Once it comes back from the DEO, we
Okay.
have everybody's comments from a statewide regional review, local regional review. We'll make whatever applicable changes. You'll all see it once again. You'll approve the ordinance on second reading, and that will
Got it.
be the adopted version.
Got it.
Okay, I apologize. I should have kept going. So anyways, with no further ado, I would like to reintroduce, I believe you have met Kelly Klepper with Kimley Horn and Associates, who has been our partner throughout this whole process, and I cannot speak more highly of the team he put together and how well they held our hands through this process and helped us get through it very quickly as we could. We've already been in discussions with DEO, and excuse me, they have the old version that they've started their review on, and they're looking forward to receiving this version. So take it away, Kelly.
Great.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As Lisa said, I'm Kelly Klepper with Kimley Horn, and I do appreciate the kind words, even though we did make a slight omission from one version to the last, and I think as Mr. Jones is going to be bringing up tonight, something that we had, and we need to make sure we reincorporate that back, so we're hoping that will be part of the motion tonight. But just kind of walking through a few things from the comprehensive plan. Now, I'm not going to belabor a lot of the different elements because you all have sat through a number of these meetings. You've had the workshop, you've had a series of presentations, but I do want to give you the highlights just in case there are any questions, and just kind of, there again, not read it verbatim, but just give you those kind of tidbits of information to kind of help the process. So the background is, this is a process that your last comprehensive plan was actually adopted in 2009. It's been adopted and modified a few times since then, but the state requires that communities reevaluate their comprehensive plans on the 7-year cycle. When you may start to go, wait a minute, 2009 plus 7? Well, during that time, there was a changeover from DCA to DEO. And at the same time, they reimagined and redid everybody's schedules. Hence, your time came up for 2020. Now, unfortunately, with COVID, we lost some time frame because of public hearings and trying to figure out how we're doing virtual meetings and everything else. Hence the reason why we're here in January versus back in September. DEO is well aware of this. They are working with a lot of communities across the state for this exact same reason. And they've been very much, when I say goal-oriented in helping communities kind of go, okay, we understand there were some issues, especially as COVID, no harm, no foul. And we have been keeping DEO in the loop so that when this comes to them, it's not a total surprise. So it'll also help with the review processes. So what is the comprehensive plan? Well, it's basically the vision for the city. What do you want to do? How do you want to grow? Where do you want to grow? What do you want to think about and do? And it's expressed in a couple of different documents, what we call our goals, objectives, policies, as well as the data inventory and analysis. You're going to be formally adopting the goals, objectives, policies, and the maps. The DIA, as we affectionately call it, is a supplemental document. It gets put into the comprehensive plan, but it's not part of the formal review and adoption. So all of that kind of comes together. So your goals, objectives, policies, all of the elements and the maps are the formal technical application of the plan itself. This is a critical component. What it's not, and this is something that DEO over the last a couple of years has been advocating that communities remove the code language that they had in their comprehensive plans. A lot of communities had established either building heights or parking standards or even architectural standards within the comprehensive plan, and that's not the place for it. The plan is the plan. It's a vision. It's a series of ideas and strategies. It's not code language. So they've been very clear saying, pull the code language out of your comp plan and put it in your land development code. So that's the reason they say it's not a code, it's a plan. So what are your elements? We actually have included a couple of new ones in here, but for simplicity purposes, there are 8 required elements, and actually public schools is kind of a hybrid. You have one that's also the economic development, which is not required, but it's in there. We did leave in there that it was April 2011, One of the things that DEO did recommend is unless you want to remove that element altogether, just leave it, note it, but don't modify it, which is what we did, because there's still some really good information in that element that you can kind of use to help inform your CRA master plan and other programs going forward. So these are the elements that we prepared in concert with staff, everything from the introduction as well as the acronyms and definitions. And that was a recommendation that came out of the Planning Commission of put something right up front so we all know what we're trying to understand and read as we're going through the next series of pages. So this kind of also sets out the framework. So the introduction says what the plan is, how it's laid out, and kind of some general legalese as far as the use of the terms. It also kind of outlines the public engagement that Lisa and the city staff took as part of this process along the way, whether or not it was a workshop or the open houses. All of those items are summarized in that element in that section there. One of the things that the city did, and we definitely commend them on this, was the livability workshop. And so taking that actually helped inform a lot of the land use decision, a lot of the other policies that we kind of worked through. And I hate to use the term smart growth, but it actually is smart growth at that point. Livability is a key component that we're all looking at, and it encompasses a broad spectrum of ideas and elements of the comprehensive plan. And you'll see some of the words that actually kind of came out through that process, everything from accessibility to small town to affordability and predictability. And that's a key component of the comprehensive plan, is that we're trying to create something that is easy to follow, easy to read, and is predictable. You can pick it up and you can understand what we're talking about, where and why. So the land use element. This is the one element that everybody always gets confused and says, oh, this is the comp plan. No, this is the land use element. It's one of 8. But basically this is setting out what you want to do on the land itself. It's got the pretty map with all the colors, but it also lays out your land use designations, those types of things that you envision or want to see on the ground in certain areas. It also has a preliminary starts the analysis for availability of infrastructure. So we're looking at the land uses as well as the infrastructure components. Can we adequately serve those areas based off of the densities and intensities that we've identified per this plan, and a build-out analysis? And one of the things that we do have to do as part of this is look as part of a short and long term from a population perspective to make sure we're meeting the needs of the growth that's anticipated through, and those numbers come through the University of Florida with Bieber, through the census, as well as a number of other sources of information. So a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. I know that this is kind of hard to see on the screen, but in the plan you can see it, and actually we've got larger versions of this that we maintain in Lisa's office. There's a couple of things when you look at this map. One, we've identified, of course, the heavy industrial, which was something that I think came out of the workshop and some of the Planning Commission discussions. And then more importantly, also identifying the mixed use areas. And the mixed use areas, the city had one. We've expanded that to create some more compact urban form types of areas where you can sustain a mixture of residential and non-residential. The items that you see along the side are kind of those higher level components that help introduce the element itself. So, like I said there again, the key things that we've talked about and identified in the comprehensive plan, especially as it relates to the land use map, the mixed use district, the heavy industrial, and also very key component right there is we did notify the owners. Lisa made sure to notify those owners if there was going to be a potential change in their property designation. And I think there's actually a couple here with us tonight. So there again, this isn't something we have to notify every single property owner within the city. There's a broad-based legal ad, but in the case where we're talking about some potential radical changes in their land use, we wanted to make sure that they understood what was going on and why. So some policy decisions that came out of this process, the initial recommendations, including some clarification and additional language as it relates to industrial land use, and also additional language as it relates to TDRs, or transfer of development rights, making sure that it's very clear that those can only be done within the city limits. You can't have something coming from Fellsmere or from unincorporated portions of the county being transferred into the city. It's things that are within the coastal high hazard or flood zones or things like that, where they could actually be transferred out of those areas subject to some potential environmental issues or hazards into areas that are more suitable for development. So at the end of the day, it's a zero-sum game. If you have 1,000 homes that you could be building in the community, it's still 1,000 homes. It just may be across the street. Transportation and mobility. So what is this? We still have to call it transportation, but a lot of the things that we're talking about are about mobility. Why? Because it's more than just about cars. It's about cars, it's about pedestrians and people, it's about bikes. It's about alternative methods and modes of transportation, including electric vehicles. So we start looking at all of those aspects, including transit, and how the city and where the city wants to do key components of a mobility component. So we look at what we call the LOS, or that level of service. And that's basically saying, you know, how well are the streets working in comparison to an adopted standard. We looked at the traffic volumes, we projected out, and we have, of course, been coordinating with the Florida Department of Transportation as well as Indian River County, because a lot of the roads within the city are not the jurisdiction of the city. So we have to make sure that even though they cross through, that we're accommodating those growths and those transportation and counts themselves. There again, kind of tells you some things along the side. Complete streets, transit-oriented, multimodal connectivity. And when we talk about all that, we're talking about the bike ped components throughout the city. You've got an incredible city, you've got an incredible asset, but it's very auto-centric. We're not saying take all the cars off the streets, we're just saying give you some additional options to think about, especially as you're doing new capital improvements or when you're doing redevelopment. Here's some things to kind of think about from that aspect. Housing. So what's the housing? A lot of times people go, well, okay, they're building houses, so we're good, right? Well, this gets into a number of different things: affordable, workforce, and attainable housing, special needs housing, elderly housing, as well as your conventional, your traditional housing components. It also gets into your historic areas of the city. So we have to analyze a lot of different things, and I will say that the Planning Commission was very adamant, and I will agree, they're right. The information and a lot of the data sources that we're required to use are slightly dated, and I'm doing slightly with the air quotes. There's different sources of information that are more readily available. So what we did with, you know, at their guidance was to look up and provide some additional sources of information as far as rental rates, home values, as well as occupancy rates. So to basically supplement it. We did have a discussion with DEO whether or not we could technically use some of that data strictly and solely, and of course the answer came back with no, but you can augment it. So we did. So there again, this map is just actually talking about your national register as far as historic places, as well as those historic resources that are identified both at the local and the state level. And one of the big things we want to talk about right there is looking at number 4, which in essence promotes a diverse mix of housing stocks that's well integrated with the city's mobility network. So what we're trying to do throughout a lot of these elements is bring in multiple aspects of it. A mix of housing, that's land use, housing options, of course, housing and affordability, and then mobility. So we're talking about all of those aspects in one chapter, but it's actually spread out across multiple. Infrastructure. So this is basically where we kind of do the report and the update as far as how the city's doing from a water, from a wastewater, of course, that's the county, solid waste, stormwater drainage, and some of the other components. We do look at, there again, levels of service. How much water is flowing through the pipes? What's the capacity in the water treatment facilities? What about the flood areas? Stormwater management, how are we doing from that? And there's a series of policies that, you know, working in concert with the city and I'll say the city engineers group and his team to making sure that we are providing the sufficient levels of infrastructure to serve the growing community. And so this is basically what this element is laying out, all of those kind of subcomponents. Now, it is not your stormwater master plan, it's not your wastewater master plan, but it's giving you kind of those guidance and the policies to help guide those future projects as well. Conservation and coastal. This was a big one because we know what it means to the city. So much so, we actually broke this up into 2 components. As you recall, back in 2019, we did the resiliency master plan with the sea level rise. And at that point, we took a portion of the coastal and the conservation area components, and we revised and updated those to bring those up into a more recent standard, so 2019. We weren't done, though, at that point. So we had to look at a lot of other things. So as we started getting into this, you know, we start looking at the broader spectrum of wetlands, native habitats. We're looking at a lot of the natural environments and the coastal resources that the city has that may not have actually been covered under the resiliency master plan. So one of the other things that we also did is we combined 2 elements, the coastal and the conservation, under one broader umbrella because they're really related. At the end of the day, they're two separate, but there's a lot of interrelations between the two. And there again, this was a priority. One of the first things that Lisa told us when we started the resiliency was, this is a priority for the city and its residents. So we made sure to give it its necessary review. And I will say this is the one element that we are making the amendments, hopefully Mr. Jones will make that motion, to put some more information back in that was unfortunately removed from our staff. So there again, that kind of just summarizes the two phases, the 2019 and then the 2020-2021 components. There again, really interesting information, especially when you start looking at some of the native habitats and the listed species that you have within the city. We did want to kind of break away from our standard presentation at this point and kind of let you know that there was quite a few policy decisions that came out of the process, whether through the workshops, the Planning Commission, or even the workshops themselves. But you know, we were talking about not just assessments of the community, but post-emergency, not just post-disaster, but post-emergency. Planning Commission was very in tune with a lot of this. So these are the kinds of changes and recommendations that they came up with, and we're like, sure, makes sense. More emphasis on not only the surface waters, but the wetlands, ensuring protection of the fisheries and the living marine organisms, and then also looking at those native habitats inventory that you have, and setting up something that's actually going to be done every 5 years, and not just kind of leaving it nebulous. We wanted to call out these because these were some pretty significant changes for the better. And like I said, these are things that the Planning Commission was very adamant about, and we do applaud them for their involvement and their, I'll say, keen eye to this topic as we were working through it. Parks, recreation, and open space. So where do we play? How do we play? And how do we do it? This is basically setting the stage for your parks system, your open spaces, your recreation components, your connectivity from a pedestrian and mobility component. Notice we brought back in transportation again. But this is also starting to kind of be the foundations for a lot of things, including your recreation level of service. How many parks do you really need for your population? Where should those parks be? Now, we've done a number of parks master plan specific that actually I'll say would be kind of the next step behind this. And one of the things that we're seeing is kind of a shift from your conventional thinking from we need 5 acres of ball fields per 1,000 population. What we're seeing a lot more and what we're doing a lot more of, and this is something we've talked about with Lisa and the staff, is maybe taking that next step, which is redefine your parks definitions, redefine your acreages, redefine what's going into those parks, and more importantly, where the parks are. What we see as a community that has, and a lot of communities have parks, and they meet their level of service, but the problem is the parks are 20 minutes away from a residential area. Are they really getting the use and the benefit? So we say, as you're starting to kind of get back into this, take a good hard look and think outside the box. Governance and implementation. So this is basically what the city does, who they work with, how they work with them, and what they're going to do from this point forward. Basically what we used to call the intergovernmental coordination. It's between and within the city, between and within the regional and the state agencies, as well as the county and other agencies. Who's doing what, how they're going to do it, and when they're going to do it. So this sets out all of those parameters for the city and those agencies. Public schools. Now again, this is one of those elements that the state said became optional, especially when we start talking about school concurrency. Of course, the city doesn't have an official school district within the city, it's the county. So everything that we're seeing here was provided in concert with the county. The county maintains their long-range master plans. We're part of that process. But instead of taking it out and kind of staying silent to where somebody'd have to go look at it somewhere else, let's put the information directly in here, especially as it relates specifically to those schools that are in and around the city of Sebastian. So there again, information here was provided by the school district. We worked with them quite a bit, to say the least, looking at their 5-year plans and also looking at population and school age projections as well, so that their plan's informed by your plan and vice versa. And with that, Mayor, members of council, I know I've kind of went through that in a quick pace, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right, so on the updated portion, Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. On page number 5 of the updated version, at the bottom where it says accident locations, I know this is probably trivial, but the last sentence down or near the last where it says Roseman Road and Sebastian Boulevard, the other two that are in there have in parentheses the number of crashes that occurred in those locations, but that's not on that particular one, but it is on the chart on the reverse, on the opposite page. The updated one.
Sir, I'm sorry, where, it's
The
on,
updated one,
in this here,
yeah, right.
page 5. I'm sorry? Oh, okay,
No, that's all right. So in the other one, it would be on page 53, but. All right, so that is there, that's not in there. The other two locations in that particular section has the numbers in parentheses, but that one doesn't. The other part to that is, I know this has been a multi-year project, and but we have the 2019 list of the crashes in those locations, but we do not have anything for 2020. We're now in January of 21. Is it possible that maybe the police department or someone can get us those numbers for year 20 so that we can add those to that rather than 19?
PD, I'm not sure, but.
we could request that, sir, but I'm wondering if they'd be even assimilated at this point to have the 2020 numbers, but we'll certainly request it.
Okay, and also, I think I sent you a copy of the email from the Pelican Island Wildlife Natural Refuge.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to read it all, but if we need to read it, Mr. City Attorney, those additions to be added to that, then perhaps, Lisa, if you have a copy of that, you could cover that for us?
Yes. Should I read it into the record, Mr. Attorney?
You can.
Okay. So this is from the refuge manager for Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge, and he just wanted to bring to our attention that he reviewed several of the elements, and he, first of all, is bringing up that in the coastal conservation and coastal element, that we should be including other species, and other species had been included. I don't know how they invariably got removed, but we do apologize. We will add those back in that version, such as our gopher tortoise, our indigo snakes. We emphasized very much about the importance of gopher tortoise in our community and how we lead to the protection of those. But what I really appreciated was his review of the Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge being misidentified as a wildlife sanctuary, and that he is uncomfortable with it also being lumped in with the Indian River Spoil Islands. So we really appreciate his comments here about clarification as to the name of the wildlife refuge, the National Wildlife Refuge, and to separate it from the Spoil Island definitions and uses, and we appreciate that, and we will absolutely bring that into compliance. And that was in the parks and open space element, and the other one was for the conservation and coastal. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
You done? Anyone else? Questions? No? All right. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this? Start with that, then we'll go back.
Good evening, gentlemen. Council, I haven't seen you since the election, so send me a congratulations on your seats here. We did a lot of work on this comprehensive plan. I think it's something to be proud of. Put together a nice package. I do have a concern, which you're aware we voted on planning and zoning 4-1 against, including the sand mine in as a mixed use. In as so much as of that time that we took the vote, we don't have a clear definition of what's included in a mixed use. It's not in the land development code. We'd like to have that. We'd like to see this come back, because we did this in part of a heavy lift, doing everything else, and the attention that should have been given to this designation wasn't done. And it should be done, should be deliberated. There's potential to possibly depreciate the neighborhood around with a mixed-use designation. It's surrounded on 3 sides by low-density residential. We should look at that. I reviewed the letter from Mr. Fisher. He wants to put houses there. That's fine. It's completely in line with what's in the area. So my question is, why not request a change from industrial to residential? And then it could be adjusted for zoning for density afterwards. So that's about all. I'd like to see this come back. There are other members of the commission that feel that this was short-shrifted and should be given a little bit more attention, and then we'll send it back to you. We're perfectly willing to work with Mr. Fisher. I know what he builds in the city. He does a good job. But that's what I'm asking, that this be done properly, sent back to you for your review, and take that into consideration, that we don't want to negatively impact other residents here in the city. That area in particular is coming back. Some older homes, but you got a younger element of people buying those homes. They could afford them. So I don't want to negatively impact their values if they need a home equity loan to, say, put a new roof on or spruce it up. So we've got to look carefully at what we're doing there. It's a beautiful parcel of land. It's going to have some awesome houses on it. So let's just make sure that we're giving it the right land use designation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Russell Herman. I reside at 586 Redwood Court. Members of the City Council. I am Vice President of the Friends of St. Sebastian River, a not-for-profit organization with a specific interest in the protection and restoration of the St. Sebastian River, the biggest source of water to the Indian River Lagoon in Indian River County, and an integral part of the environment of Sebastian. Reference in the comp plan is made to the total maximum daily load set by the Department of Environmental Protection for the Indian River Lagoon. However, the comp plan ignores the fact that the St. Sebastian River has a total maximum daily load, which has also been determined by the state. A total maximum daily load is required by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for water bodies that are impaired. That is, they do not meet the state and federal water quality standards. Parts of the St. Sebastian River are classified by the state as impaired and therefore have an associated total maximum daily load calculated for the river. We believe the comp plan should recognize the fact, as it does for the total maximum daily load for the lagoon. The comp plan includes a discussion about stormwater for many reasons. This is an issue of high concern to the Friends of St. Sebastian River. The state requirement is to retain the first 1 inch of stormwater from a rainfall event. The state also requires a 50% increase in the retention for outstanding Florida water. There is a specific legal definition as to what outstanding Florida water is, and states that all aquatic preserves are generally considered as outstanding Florida water. The statute also lists these bodies and declares the section of Indian River Lagoon from Malabar to Vero Beach as an aquatic preserve, and therefore, by extension, an outstanding Florida water. The South Florida Water Management District acknowledges that the state does not preclude issuing a permit for a discharge to an outstanding Florida water or an impaired water body. The state says that for a direct discharge to an outstanding Florida water body, you must increase the amount of stormwater retention by 50%, and that the discharge must be clearly in the public interest. An indirect discharge must not significantly degrade an outstanding Florida water and must not be contrary to public interest. So the Water Management District Handbook says increases the level of protection by requiring the 50% increase in retention for the impaired water body too, as well as not significantly degrading it. This would seem like a worthwhile modification to make for any new development. We raise these stormwater issues as the city revises its stormwater management plan described in the comprehensive plan in the section of infrastructure. How the city manages stormwater discharge to the St. Sebastian River as well as the lagoon is an issue of key importance to the Friends of the St. Sebastian River. Thank you for your attention to this critical matter.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to address this?
There's one person.
Okay.
Graham, please unmute.
Okay, I've turned it off mute.
You're good.
Good. I apologize for the quality of the microphone at this end. I've got a cheap computer. My name is Graham Cox. I live at 1213 George Street in Sebastian. In the course of the last year, I've attended most of the city committee meetings that have featured the city comprehensive plan. I've given the city's community development office my comments along the way, several of them highlighting the need to explain in plain English, and Kelly did a wonderful job of that tonight, to explain in plain English what the plan is and why the city is preparing this update. I'm quite sure that Lisa is glad to see the end of this process and the end of comments from me. My main issues today have been about the need for better communications with city residents by the planning staff about what the plan is and why it's useful. There's much in the plan that is good and well worth our positive support. The devil is in the details and in the implementation of the many policies and actions that are listed. There is much that I think is going to be controversial, and these include, and I'm just going to cover a couple of them. And you've already heard from Mr. Cristino tonight of one of them, that is proposing mixed uses, and that could mean smaller lots, mixes of commercial, industrial, residential uses, and allowing for more density development on small lots in certain areas. So mixed uses, I think, is going to be something of a controversial problem for it. Affordable housing, another one, also discussed in the missing middle as the missing middle in housing. The comprehensive plan calls for more affordable housing, but today there is next to none available. So the solution could be smaller lots, more dense development, 2 or 3 or 2, even 3-story housing units. Be prepared for that discussion. The future land use data table shows that there are ample vacant residential lots within the existing city boundaries to house the anticipating 10 or 11,000 new residents in the next 20 years. We can do this without annexing big open spaces to our west and south. What the data show is the big missing middle in the housing market. I ask, where are the crucial essential service workers going to live in this city? Our teachers, our police, our grocery store clerks, and many others who have just been discovered in the COVID-19 pandemic. Asking people to work here and making them drive long distances to get here is not a livable, sustainable city. Also contentious is the plan lays out a process for new annexations following the interlocal service boundary agreement process. Many policies and actions in the comp plan call for coordination with our neighboring communities, the county especially. Given the poor experience we had with the Graves Brothers annexation, it's time for us to follow our own wishes and rules expressed in the comp plan in the governance section and do a better job of coordinating our infrastructure and service needs. The comp plan discusses public schools, and here I'm going to go to a little detail. It describes them as the cornerstone of community planning and design. The comp plan says that schools are a priority for the city. Pelican Island Audubon Society would take this idea further. In comments to the council last fall, we described how making it possible for students and teachers to get to school on foot or bicycle would reduce the carbon footprint of the city. This would cut down on school buses idling for so long and endless trips by private cars to and from the schools. We're advocating for the schools to be centers of community activity, not something akin to minimum security prisons, which is what they look at right now, that are only used between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. 5 days a week. To show how this could work, Pelican Island Audubon is now cooperating with the county school administration and Pelican Island Elementary, making this school a hub for environmental education. Pelican Island Audubon is adjusting its student outdoor lagoon science program to comply with county and health precautions to deal with COVID-19. Pelican Island Audubon has officially adopted Pelican Island Elementary to collaborate on designing and developing a 5-year environmental science education plan. Working with teachers and students at Pelican Island, Audubon will help them achieve their goal of being an environmentally focused school. One small school, one big impact.
Mr. Cox, you got about 30 seconds, sir.
I got just 2 sentences left here.
Okay.
The comp plan is full of good ideas for livability and for sustainable future. The council's already approved a sustainable Sebastian resolution. The comp plan and the sustainable Sebastian resolution need to be taken the next step, making them more come alive by identifying carefully crafted indicators or measures that we can trace from year to year using publicly available data and judge whether we are making progress toward being a livable city. As a community project, we can develop useful measurable indicators from the multiple environmental, social, and economic data sources available from many local sources with the intent of preparing a regular report card on progress toward a livable, sustainable city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone else on Zoom?
There is not.
No one else in the room would like to speak? Okay. Then the public side of this hearing is closed. Would the staff like to, I picked up on like 3 things in that public comments. Would you like to address any of those?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Draft edits, okay, so I was trying to keep a running listing. We have absolutely no problem. In fact, I believe it's a good idea and a good recommendation to add the St. Sebastian River TMDLs and possibly bolster the policy I was writing as Mr. Herman was speaking, giving a little bit more emphasis of protection of our St. Sebastian River. That is a great catch because, as we all know, we're bordered by 2 major rivers, and we want to protect them both. So I have no problem adding such language as that. Unfortunately, I didn't catch much of what Dr. Cox was stating, but him and I have exchanged many emails after every, Mr. Cox has been just so instrumental in his review of every element. After every planning and zoning meeting, he has sent me an email with his recommendations and notes, and we believe we've captured most all of it in the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation.
Okay, I just as an aside on that, I kind of picked up, he was first talking about communication of the plan, and I would love it if we could get active communication, but I mean, we've tried as much as we could. We've had workshops, we've talked to people, we've invited people, but I think it's not a bad idea to, as we move through the next phase in this, to maybe talk about some more communication facilities so that people know what's going on. It might be something as simple as putting something on our website or something like that to reference the fact of where we are on it. And I know that's there in your place on the website. He also made a very convincing argument for affordable housing, and then he kind of ditched affordable housing by saying it means more density and it means smaller lots, and that's exactly what it means. I mean, we have a lot of lots in the Highlands, but it's sad to say that the people who are building houses that a teacher can't buy. And we can't tell a contractor what price point to go for the houses he's building. I mean, it would be nice, but we can't do that. So if we're going to build workforce housing, I hate to call it affordable housing, people totally miss the meaning of that. If we're going to build workforce housing in Sebastian, it's going to mean higher densities and smaller lots. I really believe that, and I don't think we can get around that very much. So it's just a matter of something to deal with that. I'm not sure I understood how the thing about Pelican Island, I think that's very admirable on their part to do what they've done with the grade school, but I don't know how that fits the comp plan thing when it comes in.
Actually, that was one of his recommendations, and again, at an earlier on, and we incorporated as in some of the school sites in part of our green infrastructure and in the parks area as part of our recreation areas, to, the policy that we will look at those as additional areas. I mean, we don't have any control of the school sites, but recognizing that they're part of our infrastructure and we can use them.
Okay, all right, I'm fine with that. So anyone else up here have any questions or comments they want to make?
I don't have any necessary questions. I have some comments, and this has been an ongoing process, and I think that getting this done in the document that we received, I think, is outstanding. I'm very, very pleased with what I see in this. It shows that, we've taken into consideration pretty much everything everyone said and done our best to make everyone happy with this. This is impossible to do, of course, but there's a good attempt done here while still maintaining the ability to keep Sebastian. And I think that's what's so good about it. You guys have worked very hard. You produced a great document. There's nothing outrageous in here at all. I think it's actually, it kind of, should make a lot of the people who are concerned about future development in Sebastian, it should ease their concerns based on much of the things in here. I did have some questions that I spoke with Mr. Carlisle about on the new industrial property, and that new designation. It was a little bit confusing in the first read, so I had to go back and read it again to make sure that it was accomplishing what we were looking for in the direction that this council gave, and I believe that it's doing just that, so that industrial property will be able to be utilized in its best form. So I just want to congratulate staff and thank everyone who was involved in this. It's a really fine document, and all of the input that we've received from even the environmental groups and the planning and zoning, and I think just basic citizenry have done a good job. And you can see that we have the development community involved in the discussion. We have the environmentalists involved in the discussion, and then just the general public. So it's well done. Good work to staff. Very pleased with this document.
Thank you. John, you have anything? No? Anyone else over here? Do you have anything?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to make a comment. We can all look at this thing, and everybody can look at it and find something to pick at or pick up on. But I really like to thank Lisa, her staff, and everyone who participated in putting this all together. You guys did a wonderful job, and it's a great product, and we definitely look forward to this in the city. It will definitely keep us one of the most beautiful cities on the coast. So thank you all for your hard work.
Bob, you have anything?
Well, yes, I would just input, this is our vision for the city for the next 20 years. This is not the Bible. My vision is not the curse for the next 7 days, but I probably, make it to the end of a meeting under my breath. But, I mean, that's the thing, is the land development code, then we look in individually. You know, so our plan, the vision is perfect right now in a perfect world, but things change over the time. And then again, I hope we're gonna be on track 7 years. We'll relook at this vision and can update it at that time.
All right. So thank you. And I don't want to remind the growth management staff of this, but as much hard work as this has been, which it has been, the real hard work will begin when it's finally approved. Because this comp plan is going to require that we make significantly major changes to our land development code. And I think some of you guys were up here when that was done the last time, and you realized, you know, how complicated and difficult that is. So it's going to require that we make a lot of changes to our land development code, which is going to be a big deal. So they've done a fantastic job on this. I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job on that, but it's not like their work is over. Question for the attorney. The changes that we talked about this evening, what Councilmember Jones brought up and the others, do we need in a motion to address that, or will just a motion to approve this on first reading suffice for what we need to do?
I think just make it a motion on first reading. I think it would be sufficient to cover what Councilmember Jones was talking about.
Okay.
And also, if I can, just for the record, the document that Lisa was reading, just make sure to incorporate into the record and give it a copy to the city clerk.
All right. And, okay. And Mr. Herman, if you would please, maybe you would put your letter that you read in the record so Lisa can look at that when she talks about that change. All right. Thank you. All right. We're ready for a motion.
Mayor Dodd, I move approval of ordinance number O-21-01 on first reading, providing for the transmittal of the proposed City of Sebastian Comprehensive Plan 2040.
You have a second?
Second.
All right. Have a motion by Vice Mayor Hill, seconded by Councilmember Jones. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to...
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I left all of my septic stuff in the office. Can I just run real quick?
We will wait.
Well, you can move
I'll start
on
it,
until
but
that
we'll wait
part.
for you.
I'm so
Okay.
sorry, sir.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to recess the city council meeting, and we're going to reconvene as the Community Development Agency. Item A for the Community Development Agency is to approve the minutes from our December 9th, 2020 CRA meeting.
I move approval, Mr. Mayor.
I second that.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, now, we're moving on to item number 11B. Mr. City Manager, waiting for Lisa to get back, if you would like to introduce this.
Sure. As a discussion item under the mayor's comments at the last meeting, it was asked that this be brought back as an agenda item to discuss specifically the septic to sewer program in the CRA. The county had, in 2019, had finished the project and noticed of residents that sewer was available there. We have been working, the city has been working for, I believe, about 4 years in providing septic to sewer grants and trying to get those to convert from a standard septic system into a from a septic system into a standardized sewer system. We've sent out flyers, we've sent out notices, we've sent out news blasts about the grants that are available, and I think the number to date is about 17 that have applied for that grant. And so there are requirements in state statute and in our ordinances that once sewer is available, it's mandatory to hook up. The health department's stance is if the septic system fails, then they won't allow them to repair it or replace it, they have to hook up. And the county kind of mirrors that methodology. We currently have about $160,000 in our septic to sewer grant program, and that money is available for people to apply. I think we only have one, and I'll let Lisa address it, but I think we only have one that we know is going to apply, and that's the mobile station when they remodel. And I'm not sure that we have any that haven't completed their programs to date. So we need, one of the things that was discussed is how are we going to move this forward and get these critical systems off of the Indian River Lagoon in the CRA district, and what processes you want us as staff to move forward with, and direction. Basically, how do you foresee us implementing a program in a study, obviously, for the ones that have to go on. We have two programs. One is some of those systems have to be put on a lift station, and some of those can be attached to gravity. There's about 40 that can go on gravity sewer, which is about $4,000 to $5,000 a unit, depending on where they are, and the lift stations can be $10,000 to $15,000 per unit.
Okay, Council, I kind of started some of this because I think 3 meetings ago, the city manager mentioned to us that he's going to lose this grant money if people don't use the grant program. And so then I had a conversation with him, and it turned out that also the county has been waiving impact fees, and now they're only waiving, I think, 30% or something like that.
I think they're 20%. It goes down.
Yeah.
A marked percentage
and so
every
not
year.
only are the residents or the businesses that are on sewer that have to go to, on septic that have to go to sewer, not only are we in a situation we might lose that grant money, but the major savings to people in not having to pay that impact fee, or at least not having to pay part of it. It's all, the 100% forgiveness is already over with. They're not doing that anymore. So I kind of asked the city manager if he would take a look at alternatives, and I kind of laid out an objective on this, and once again, I just did this so I could get it back to council and get a discussion going on it. That we try to come up with a way that we can get all 140 of those properties off septic and onto the central waste system. And it turned out in some of my discussions that there's some grant money that we can use that we haven't been able to apply for, because this particular grant program requires that we guarantee 95% or greater of the eligible properties actually connect. And there's been no way in a voluntary environment, completely voluntary environment, that we could even consider that type of a grant program. So there are some grant programs out there. And what the city manager and I talked about after looking at this is the possibility that the city itself, based on the fact that there is a state statute, and at some point in time somebody's going to enforce this state statute that says that people have to connect within 12 months of it becoming available. I think the county notified the businesses and residents in the CRA that this central collection system was available like 3 years ago. So I may be wrong about that date, but it was something like that.
Between May and September of 2019, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so it was less than 3 years ago. It was 2 years ago. But what would be the process or procedures under which the city could assume the financial responsibility? And I'm not talking about us losing the money here now, but we could assume the financial contracting and management responsibility to actually get this transaction to take place, and then cover as much of that as possible with grant programs, especially with grant programs like the one program that growth management people put in here that will pretty much pay 100% of the cost of an individual going from their house out to connect, for example. And in the case of lift stations, that could be pretty substantial, because a lift station may be 2 lots away or 3 lots away in that process. So, and it is, according to the city attorney and city manager, it is completely feasible for us to do this, and to then basically the same way the utility does when they put a water system in. We then go after each property owner based on ERUs to reimburse the city for the costs that they could not cover through their grants and other purposes like that. It is a way for us to get all of those properties off. For us to be eligible for grant money we can't get under the current process, and also for us to maximize the savings that we get for the residences by taking advantage of the impact fee reductions, and possibly being able to reduce their overall cost with additional grant money. So that's how I got this started with these guys, and they've done a great job. All three, the growth management department and the city attorney and city manager, have done a great job putting this package together on this. So I'd kind of like to get some discussion and see if there's any interest in us trying to move forward in this direction.
I do have a question. So have we had people come to the city that couldn't afford to do this? Because right now you have to put the money out and then you get paid back when the project's complete. Have we had people come to the city to find out if there are other alternatives for it right now, or no?
Not that I'm
really?
aware of.
Okay.
I know Lisa's office handles those application processes. There's, it is a reimbursable grant because we want to make sure the work gets done, and
Right.
most grants are reimbursable to make sure that the work gets done and that the contractors are paid. But we're just not even getting inquiries about it, even though staff sent out flyers to every one of the businesses and residents within the CRA, informing them of the grant and the fact that the ERU and the impact fees credits were going to be substantially reduced every year. I think at that point we got about 4 or maybe 5 from those flyers that they mailed out.
But do these flyers make it appear that they're going to have to put the money out and then get paid back at the end?
It does it does tell them it is a reimbursable grant.
Okay. I mean, obviously, if you know you don't have the money, there's no point in looking for it, but I kind of like where the mayor's going. I mean, it means putting some financial on us, but like you said, the utilities does it all the time. Why can't we? If it can help us get this paid for, I'm for moving that direction.
Anyone else?
No, I am all in favor of it. I was a very strong proponent of working with the county to get that line extended through there, and I'm extremely, I'm very strongly a proponent of getting all of those properties on there. I'm a little concerned right now in the economic condition that businesses, small businesses in particular, restaurants, are in, where we may be burdening them with some additional expenses. Now, if there was a way that we could get this thing paid for without impacting the businesses, then I would be like, let's go right now and get this thing started. But we're talking about businesses who are scraping by right now, trying to make sure they can pay their employees, and the owners aren't even taking any money. And so if we're going to be at this time impacting our businesses, I couldn't favor that. Now, in the future, of course, I'm in favor of making sure that all of those properties are on sewer. That's why I fought hard to get that line put through that CRA. But I'm just a little bit concerned about the economic impact to our business community at this time.
One of the things, I also would not want to say that a month from now or 2 months from now or 3 months from now, we're going to request money from a business. One of the considerations in looking at this is that we're probably talking about 18 to 24 months on the businesses, which are the people who require lift stations. And so we're talking about not having any type of, not even having an agreement with them on how they would pay that money back to the city for an extended period of time.
So one of the things that are in the packet is the potential for an engineer to start the process and start rolling that out, and it states that could take approximately a year.
Yeah.
And then at that time, we'll see what I'm just saying that I would be okay with that process going, and then at that time, we would have to wait till then anyway, before we start doing any infrastructure improvements, before we start putting pipe in the ground.
Well, there's a couple of issues, and I think what you're saying is 100% correct. And what I would like to see us do tonight, if possible, is to provide the city manager a direction that he put together a project plan to do this, and that the city takes on the responsibility of financing the engineering work to determine how we can do it. Give you an example, the 100 properties that require a lift station, it's just unfathomable for me to think that the county utility expects 100 lift stations being put in down there. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And if each individual does that, that's what they're going to have. What we could do is have an engineering firm actually look at the system, do a detailed enough study to be able to determine, can we create community lift stations? Can we create 25 lift stations that do those 100 businesses? And I don't know.
And of course, we would have to have buy-in from our friends at the county.
Yeah.
And so we'd have to work with them.
Yes, we'd have to work with them.
So what you're asking for, I can see us approving the city manager going forward and creating some sort of a plan, because at that point there's still no economic impact to our businesses.
No, here's
and then after that comes back to us or whoever's up here, then that would be approved by that council.
Now, here's the caveat that kind of makes a little difference on that. There's 40 gravity feed properties down here. I think they're primarily all residences, correct?
I think the majority of them there is residents. I think there may be a couple businesses mixed in, especially on the south end of the CRA.
So what's going to happen now, a year and a half from now, let's say, when we get through this process, and might take an engineer 6 to 8 months to develop a system. It'll take us a year to get it through the county. Okay, I understand that. We all understand that process. By that time, those individuals are going to be responsible for paying probably an additional $600 or $700 worth of impact fees that they don't have to pay today, as the impact fee forgiveness program keeps marching down. And if I read the way that letter was written, the county could probably just pull that today if they choose to, because it says they're going to give you forgiveness if you do it within the first year, and after the first year, they're going to give you forgiveness for a smaller percentage. But it doesn't really say what a timetable is for reduction of that. And I haven't seen anything from the county that actually says, year 2 it's 80%, year 3 it's 60%. I haven't seen anything like that yet. So I don't know if we've been able to produce something like that.
Mr. Mayor?
So the question.
So for those 40
so,
properties,
right.
those 40 properties,
right.
if we don't authorize him to move forward on those 40 properties, it's going to cost the city and the property owners more money later on, and they can be done very quickly. Would you like?
But we couldn't authorize him to do that tonight because we don't have a cost.
No, I agree with you 100. Well, we do have a cost on that. We know it's a project. We have actually enough money in our grant right now, in our grant system right now, to pretty much do that, all 40 of those. We actually do, because the cost on a non-gravity feed system is about $1,500.
Gravity feed can range anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. May I just address one thing? I believe the ERU credits or the impact fee credits are for both business lift stations and gravity, correct? Yes. So it's not just the 40; it's the 140 that have the effects of the reduction in impact fees from the county. So what's the bigger question is, the 160,000, a portion of that money is budgeted money from the city that we have in our CRA budget for this. That was our match to Indian River Lagoon Council. The challenge that we do still have is about 80,000 of that money from the Indian River Lagoon Council has not been spent and has to be spent by September. I don't know that we couldn't talk to them about getting an extension if we're telling them we're going to do this. I can't guarantee it, but if we're going to talk about doing something has this big of an impact, I think that we might be able to. I'll let Lisa address that with Dr. DeFreed. But the other thing we've got, I went to the state legislature, and my calculations were about $1.8 million to convert all of these, and the $500,000 that was actually put into the county's coffers was only going to be a drop in the bucket to do about a third of those. So that's kind of what we're looking at in dollar-wise and how we assess that out. But once the grant money's gone, that's gone. And so people that don't get grants will be stuck paying 100% of the connection fees, the impact fee, or the reduction in the impact fees, and all of those. So it's a puzzle that's got a lot of moving parts to it.
And then we pay to install the gravity feed, $5,000 a place, 5,000 times 40, 200,000. We pay to do that. Then then the property owner then has to pay their impact fees. What's the cost of the impact fee?
Okay, the cost of the impact fees right now to the property owner, do you have
Depends
that
on the ERUs.
For a resident.
Say it's one house.
A resident's an a single ERU.
What's the cost of a?
So a single ERU is $27.96 each.
So $2,700.
Plus fees, so about $2,800.
$2,800.
And we could literally, the city could literally pay that and roll that money into the 25% match that we would expect from the property owner, roll that into a single plan, and then provide some time frame for that to be paid by the owners.
Right, I get that, but that's kicking it up to 300,000
So
plus for this.
I have a question about that.
Yeah, okay.
Is it possible, I mean, I'm not speaking out of turn when I say, is it possible to request the county to extend the impact fee reduction? I mean, it's obviously something the Board of County Commissioners would decide, but unless there's a grant associated with that as well, but is that something we can do as a larger part of this project, is request that?
So back last year, I was asked that question. I posed that question to the county. the county administrator said it would have to go back to the Board of County Commissioners. He did not feel it was something that he would support at that time. So we did ask that question.
Even as a larger project of what we're talking about now?
We did ask that question.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Michelle Faulkner, our planner, did a lot more digging today and actually brought up something that we had seen several years ago but had forgotten about. The county is it still on the website, the frequently asked questions? Because I remember when Arjuna put it up. So just to clarify for all of you, the county put out that the individuals on the gravity sewer lines that they just put in phase 1, and again, there's approximately 40 in our city limits, that they had 5 years to connect, mandatory connection. They needed to connect by May 22nd, 2024. And they give every year for over 5 years what the amount of the impact fee that's going to be paid by Indian River County and the amount that has to be paid by the residents. And this is what you're alluding to, Mr. Mayor, that over the 5 years, they start at 100% being paid by Indian River County, then 80%, then 60, then 40, then 20.
So when, right now, we're at 80.
That is correct, sir, because we're in year 2.
When do we go to 60?
It'll be in April of 21.
April of 21, so.
I believe so, yes, sir.
All right, so then we go to 40% in April of 22.
That's correct.
And it's a roughly $3,000 impact fee, so that's,
Well, no, the impact, yeah, you're correct. The 2796, you are
yeah,
correct, sir, I'm sorry.
So the impact on that is $600 some a year roughly that it runs into, so.
Can I ask, Mayor Dodd, if I
Yes.
can ask a question, please?
Yes.
The impact fees, the county, they don't require that $2,700 upfront. They
do.
put that in your bill.
No, the impact fee they require up front. I just had to do that with my water service. They wouldn't let me, they wouldn't
let you
put
add
the
it to the
meter
bill?
until I
Yes,
paid the
that's a
impact
big
fee.
nut.
So they're
what-
not gonna put the sanitary connection point in.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's two separate issues. The county allowed them to make payments on the infrastructure improvements
Yes.
that were put in. So the capital cost to put the force main or the gravity sewer main in was itemized over each piece of property, and that had to either be paid in full or paid over 10 installments with a minimal interest. So that's kind of where they let you pay it in time.
Right.
But impact fees are required at the time of connection. So your impact fees and all of the components to go to converting it from a septic to a sewer all have to be paid.
So a business could potentially have 10 ERUs easily, or more. So you're looking at 30 grand plus for the impact fee.
For an impact fee
Yeah.
on a business, yeah. And one of the other issues in conversations with the city attorney was, I asked the question, can we do the 40 if we don't do the program for the 100? And he said, no, you really need to, I'll let him address this, so why don't you, if you do, yeah.
What was the question again, Mr. Mayor?
Well, we had a conversation about, can we do the 40, and then if we don't end up doing the 100, is that an issue for us? And you expressed the concern that if we are going to do the 40, we need to do that as part of a program to do the whole thing. If we're going to do just the gravity-fed people, we need to, as a part of a program, do the whole thing.
I don't think that conversation was with me, Mr. Mayor. Maybe it was with,
Yeah, it was in your office. You were sitting there.
It does make sense.
Yeah. I mean, the three of us were sitting in your office, and I asked that
but
question.
the conversation I was having is whether or not we can ultimately collect.
Yes.
And that was the issue that I was talking about with our codes.
Yeah.
But,
And we can't, and your opinion is we have no issue with that?
No.
Okay, so and here's what, do you guys have any questions?
I got a couple.
Okay.
You know, this is similar to when we wanted to do mandatory garbage pickup and everybody would get it done cheaper. Why somebody wants to take their own trash to one of the places, you know, the smell and everything, I don't understand. What I'm wondering is, you know, hooking up to the sewer makes sense to everybody that's sitting in here. But we got to think about the people that are sitting there that don't want to do it. One is cost. Is there a way we can make an ordinance? If you sell that property and it's on septic, it's got to be on sewer, the next owner's taking it or whatever. I think if we made an ordinance that way, then people would pay a little bit more attention. No, 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 and then you sell them on the grant program about hooking up, how important this issue is. Because if you try and make it mandatory, you're gonna have, I don't know how many people are gonna be down here, I'm not hooking up, I don't have to hook up, you know? So, I mean, if there's a way, if it changes hands, because, I mean, if you wait over 10 years, a lot of those properties that you're talking about would have changed hands and been bought by a new owner. And if the new owner knows that has to be on sewer, that might make a change.
Okay, do you
Mr.
want to
Mayor,
talk to him, or
can
do you
I do a
wanna-
little sidebar with the attorney on an idea that I think might address what Councilmember McParland is saying? If you can just give me 1 minute to whisper in his ear.
If you want to whisper in his ear, go ahead.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, all right, let's take a 5-minute break. We're back from recess. Mr. City Manager.
So, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that when Councilmember Parton was asking about doing an ordinance to put a condition of sale on the property, the city attorney and I, we're not really sure that that's a proper methodology. We do have an ordinance that requires them to hook up. Our ordinance says 60 days. Regardless of what the county said you had 5 years, our ordinance says 60 days after it's available, you could hook it up. One of the things that we could do is send a notice of violation, record it, and then if they ever sell the property, they'd have to correct the violation. That would be an option rather than trying to create an ordinance that may go against the Commerce Clause and things of that nature. So that may be an option to consider. It does put a notice of violation on the property. They do have to go to the magistrate to have that notice filed and recorded at the clerks, but then that would require them to.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't be in favor of doing that unless we
it was just
do
an
that
option.
as part of a process for us to get it done, you know. I mean, that's, council, yeah, I would like to see us, if there's an agreement, ask the city manager to move forward putting together this plan and try to expedite it as much as possible. And I know that it's going to take us some time to get a plan together that we can get approval from all the other partners that we have to bring into this to go forward with. But I think it's tantamount on the city that we get these 140 properties connected to that. And the reason I say that is that there's lots of conversations everywhere about the Sebastian Highlands being on septic. Right now, the Sebastian Highlands is are the top 10, in the top 10, certainly in the top 20, depends on what they do with that survey or study that was done by Schulte Group, of the polluting septic systems for the Indian River Lagoon in the county. So if we really want to clean up the lagoon, a major step would be to migrate all of Sebastian to a central collective system. Not something we can do on our own. It takes a lot. That's a big deal. But I will suggest to you that if we can't come up with the political will to do it for 140 pieces of property in the CRA, we're never going to get it done in the Highlands. And we might as well just all quit worried about that. So I feel that this is something that we need to consider. And it's going to give us a good opportunity. We're going to find out just exactly what kind of cooperation we get from the county utility, what kind of cooperation we get from everybody. Because what we're saying to people is that the city wants to take the responsibility of connecting these people, which will allow us to get more grant money than we can get if we don't do that under our current process. We're not going to get this, is it 213 or that?
319.
We're not going to get these 319 grant money under the current process because they require we have a 95% connection rate. And we can't tell people that we're going to have a 95% connection rate in our lifetimes right now under our current proposal. The city does have an ordinance that requires that they connect. The county has an ordinance that requires that they connect. The state has an ordinance that requires that people connect. So it's not like we're on teetering legal ground here. What it means is that the city has to be prepared to take on the financial responsibility of contracting this, making it happen, and then working out the financial reimbursement details with the owners of the property and make it as unencumbering on their finances as we can, make it as easy, even if it means a 10-year payout program. But the city can take on the financial responsibility of doing that, knowing we're going to get reimbursed, because I have great trust in our city attorney putting together a document that requires that they pay us back that they can't get out of, that we're going to get the money back of them. So I think it's important that we move forward with this, and so I'd kind of ask if I can get
Mr. Mayor,
some support on
I
that.
do have one thing, if I can.
Yes.
So I was talking to the growth management ladies a minute ago, so I looked it up real quick. The city of Vero actually came up with an ordinance that they gave a timeline, actually it was by January 1st, that 500 homeowners on the barrier island in the city of Vero either had to give proof that they've had their septic systems pumped and inspected or connected to the step system in Vero. And if their septic systems were inspected, they weren't allowed to fix that. They were required to connect to the system. I'm just wondering, and if they didn't get that done, then they faced code enforcement. I'm not saying we want to be like Vero, but it's not a bad idea of how maybe to handle part of what we're dealing with. They've already come up with the legislation and the ideas and the fines and how to deal with it. It might be something worth looking at to go the direction we're trying to go.
Well,
Just a thought.
I would just say to that, I would just say that that there's already, as the mayor has stated, there's already several governing agencies that have in place the mandatory hookup. And so all it would take is for us to say, we're going to enforce it. That's it. So all we have to do is direct the city manager to enforce that. I don't want to do that because that's going to put a major financial burden on our businesses in the community. I do like the way Mayor Dodd is trying to get this thing moved in the right direction. So I would agree that we should ask the city manager to come up with a plan going forward and bring that plan back to us for approval. That, whether it include getting an engineer, we're going to have to get an engineer to tell us how much, all of the things. There's going to have to be a total plan, and then a way to pay for it, and then how that reimbursement will come in the future. All of those things are going to have to be approved in the future. It can't be approved right now.
Right. I agree with that.
So I would be in favor of and I think we can do that through a simple, just to go forward. If you want a motion, we can do it through a motion, but
Well,
I think
it's going to require that he expend funds, so I think we should do it through a motion.
Yeah,
And
so-
give him an opportunity to do that.
Okay, I would make a motion to that.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Now, do we have any comment on that?
Yeah, Mayor Dodd, I agree that we have to do something. How many years has it been prior to COVID that this was out there for those businesses to come in? Was it 2 years or something?
Probably 6.
Sir, we've had a septic to sewer conversion program in the CRA since 2016.
Right, so we've had all those years up to COVID and still nobody wanted to do it. And we have to do something. Our Indian River Lagoon depends on that. You know, we cannot keep pumping this septic stuff into our lagoon because it's not going to be as pristine as it should be. And this is why people move here. We have a beautiful river and we want to keep it that way. And if people haven't hooked up in that amount of time with all the information that's been out there, we have to do something. We have to stand up and push the issue one way or the other. I'm for pushing this forward whatever way we can because it's not just about the COVID year. Those businesses and everybody down there know that they've had ample enough time to put aside the resources to move forward with that to protect our lagoon. So whatever way the council, your pleasure, I am willing to move in that direction to push this forward because we need to do that. That's just my take.
You have any questions, Bob?
Well, I'd like to throw in a caveat. I'm all for doing the plan, how it's going to be paid for. But at the end of the day, if we just say, oh, well, we can't do it, I think we should go towards enforcement.
Right.
Because that's going to cost a lot of money with an engineer and everything like that. It's like, I don't just want to do this plan that's going to sit up on the shelf and nothing gets done with it, and it was a great idea, but it cost a lot of money. At the end of the day, if it's not being done, then I think we need to go towards enforcement.
I agree with that 100%. I personally would not be in favor of spending money to do a plan if we don't intend to execute it.
Right.
I think that's a simple thing, that we have to recognize that we intend to do this when the plan comes together, but we don't know how much we intend to spend yet because we haven't seen the plan, basically. And I would not want to notify businesses or anybody that there's a mandatory requirement that they convert onto this unless the city can work out a process by which we mitigate the expense as much as possible. And this particular grant program is a major bonus to us, except we've got to guarantee the connection by everybody to do that. And that's the one reason that I thought in our conversations with the growth management and the city manager was that we just have to bite the bullet and be willing to contract it, manage it, install it, and then work with getting reimbursement on what we can't afford to cover. So I agree with you 100%. I would not want to move forward with a plan unless we felt like we certainly were going to go forward with it.
And then one last thing real quick, I agree with everything everyone said up here. Going forward, I would like, if it's possible, to put something together that will let the businesses know that we're doing this, that there's money available now that won't be available, and maybe that will push them to use that grant funding. Because that grant funding, if it's going to go away, we don't, we want them to do it on their own. So maybe if we could put some sort of a flyer together to get to all of the businesses that are currently on septic that says the city is moving forward to get these businesses on septic. It will be mandatory. It is mandatory, but the city's moving forward with this plan. There are monies available to assist you now. Those monies may not be available later. Something to that effect.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
So we can put out another flyer. I know she did one last year. We can do a more stringent one this year. It's only to 140 units, so she can get that out, and we'll work on some verbiage. Time's running out, clock's ticking.
And the 40 gravity-fed properties, we can do those relatively quick if we can get the plan put together. So hopefully that puts a little bit of pressure on you in trying to move forward on getting a contractor and finding an engineer and so forth to do that. But I wouldn't want to lose any favorable impact dollar reductions and so forth on those 40 if it's at all possible not to do that. So that's just, but the motion is that we direct you to do the plan. It's motion seconded. Does the council feel like we need to put a dollar limit on this or put a dollar parameter on this? Or are we going to ask him to come back with a budget on?
I think that's what needs to happen. I think that I think you should bring us back a budget.
Okay. You have a problem with that?
No, that's what I was going to
Okay.
recommend.
All right, sounds good. All
Mayor
right, let's,
Dodd,
yes.
Do we need to add in there, I know we talked about, I'm okay with the motion and all that. Do we need to add to that motion, Manny, anything about the enforcement side of it later, or we can just leave it as is until they come back the next time with the dollar amount?
I think if I could, that's going to be part of the plan. My thoughts are that all of that is brought back by the city manager. So this is going to be the process of getting them connected, this is going to be the process of the city using the money, and this is going to be the process of getting our reimbursement back. And so boom, 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 and then we can take it from there. And I agree, and I think that in that letter, it should state that the city is serious about getting these things done. The city is serious about requiring this connection, and it's going to happen. So, and the funds are available now.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion?
Well, if I can,
Yes,
I was just going to answer
I'm
his
sorry.
question. The answer is, my opinion is, if you want to add it to his plan, that's fine, because we do have the resource, we do have the mechanism right now for the enforceability through our codes.
Yes.
So that could be part of the plan too, get back to you guys, but that's part of the codes.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not going to be able to execute the plan unless we unless we say there's a mandatory connection, and here's how we're going to here's how we're going to assist you in doing that connection, and here's how we're going to reduce your cost to do that.
Yeah, agreed. Every part of what we discussed should be part of that plan, but city manager has that under control.
Great. We ready? Ready. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Mayor, public comment?
Yes.
Public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there public comment on this? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to comment on this? There is not. Okay, now, let's take a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, now, before anybody out there who has seen this conversation goes crazy and starts writing all those wild emails, what we're attempting to do is to get the connection done as cheaply to you as we can do. So please be aware of that. We're on now to, I'm now closing the CRA meeting and re-adjourning the city council meeting. Okay, and we're on to new business. This is new business item A, 14A. Would you like to do this, or you want me to do it?
It's up to you, whatever you would like. I'll
I brought
yield
this
to the
to the
mayor.
city manager. The Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, there's a piece of legislation, Senate Bill 62, that is floating around Tallahassee right now to disband the regional planning councils. And it's kind of a power move. I think they've tried to do this before. I think the city manager told me it was like 6 years ago they tried to do this. And the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council at their last meeting passed a resolution to ask that our legislatures not support that. Also, the Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities passed the same resolution on this. And so I brought this resolution to the city manager and ask that they modify that so that the city council can weigh in on that if you guys would like to do that. I personally see a benefit to the regional planning council, and so I would hate to see those people go away for that purpose.
Yeah, I'd move approval of resolution number R-21-3.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, any other conversation? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Public comment?
Yes.
Public comment?
Yes.
Public
Oh,
comment.
I'm sorry. Is there any public comment on this? Andy, you want to talk? All right, no public comment.
Might be somebody on Zoom.
Is anybody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
All right. All signify aye for
Aye.
approval.
Aye.
Okay, all right, now. The next item is item number B, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we, Ken Griffin and Lisa and them and Scott worked with the county to get this St. John's cost share grant for the extension of sewer down Roseland Road to facilitate the new Public Works compound. Additionally, the county is, and this is important, the county is going to spend approximately $900,000 on the St. Sebastian River side of Roseland Road, converting all of those properties from septic to sewer. And Scott Baker got a grant from DOT to do the east side of Roseland Road for the airport, to put that into sanitary sewer. This is a big project. Between the two of us, we're spending, $2 million on this. Our cost share is $31,000 for the extension of the force main. Our third share for the force main extension from Sunset to Corporate Way, which will allow us to hook the Public Works compound to it. But we're also managing the grant for the remainder, 2/3 of the cost for the county, so they'll get reimbursed for that. So it was a good effort by all parties in cooperation with the county, and this is going to make a huge impact on that side of the city on St. Sebastian River. So we'd ask the council to consider approving the cost share agreement with St. John's Water Management District and the city for the wastewater utility expansion.
Mayor Dodd, I'd move to accept the cost share agreement with St. John's River Water Management District and authorize the city manager to execute.
I second.
Any comments? Any public comment on this? Seeing none. Anyone on Zoom? No. Okay.
No, there is not.
All right. Any comments from the council?
No, great job. This is
Okay.
outstanding.
Yeah.
For the airport, for the industrial area over there. This is a wonderful project. And the staff should be commended for getting this done. This could help with an economic boon on that west side of the airport. So outstanding work.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
No, I agree with that too. I just have one question on, about the 13 septic tanks. Are those, where are they located? Is that homes on that, what side of the road would that be? East side of the road from the airport, or where are they at? Or on the airport itself?
So in this grant, it's on the west side where it's going to put Donald McDonald Park on sewer that are
Okay, yeah,
right now they're on septic. There's several homes through that area between Donald McDonald and Sunset that are not on sewer. Our project, separate from this project, will put everything in the airport. But we needed this force main in order to connect the new Public Works facility to the sanitary sewer system. And as I said, Mr. Baker got a grant from DOT to do all of the west side of the airport with sanitary sewer and a huge lift station that we're going to be putting in.
Right. So the main is going on the west side of the road. It's going to run across to the city property?
It'll be on Roseland Road, not on
Right.
city property proper.
Right, okay.
All right. Any other questions? We have a motion. This is financial. Would you have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Nunn,
Yes.
Mayor Dodd,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
and Councilmember McPartlin.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, we're on to city attorney matters,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
city manager matters.
I have a couple updates. The CARES Act funding, the county is going to distribute additional funds to all the people who received a grant from the county for their business grants. And we're going to distribute an additional $2,000 to the 76 applicants for the city to follow suit with the county on their CARES funding. So that should be going out relatively soon. We're finalizing the details on that. Update on the golf carts. We put in 120 new batteries in the golf carts. We've taken some mismatched batteries and consolidated them. We have about 2/3 of the fleet now that's makes the process, makes the golf course go, and we're working with Club Car on the warranty issues as we speak. So that's moving forward. I would like to try to schedule either the first meeting or the second meeting in February for the harbor lights. We talked about it. We've got several people interested in that property, but we need a workshop. I want consensus from council if you want to have that, a 5 o'clock workshop on the 10th. I believe it's the 10th, Jeanette?
When is that?
The 10th?
Yeah, or the second meeting in February. But we have some people very interested in that property.
The first thing we got to decide is if we want to sell it.
We need to decide what the pleasure of council is on that property.
Okay, so for the council, which meeting in February would be appropriate for a 5 o'clock workshop?
10th works for me.
10th?
10th works for me.
At 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock on the 10th. Let's schedule it then.
That work?
Is this going to be a CRA meeting or a council meeting? A CRA?
It's a workshop.
It would be a
CRA workshop.
CRA workshop. Well, now, would the CRA have to recommend to the council action on that? CRA board? Can they make that decision? I'm just trying to say what's the best way.
Well,
Let's just, so we solve it in one meeting.
I think the CRA board would have to make a recommendation to council because you'd be selling property.
Yes, right.
Or
Okay.
not.
All right. We'll work through that in the workshop. Okay. It would be a CRA workshop, I think.
Correct.
Don't you? Yes.
Yes, it would.
All right.
So we need
I'll
to
have
have
to
that on
run
the
an
CRA and
advertisement.
the council agenda for that night?
Yeah. Listen, I don't know. They educated all these lawyers, and you know what they do with this stuff.
The CRA doesn't know anything they're talking about anyway.
So that's at 5?
Is that it?
5.
5 o'clock. Got it. Is that
Yep, that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
City clerk matters. All right, council, I have one thing on my list. A meeting or so ago, the council directed that I come up or look at the process within Sebastian for reviewing charter officer contracts. And I have done that, and I've got there was some information I think placed at your chair this evening when you came through on that. What I did is I did a search of the city information, and I included the director of HR and our chief financial officer in these conversations. The city manager was involved in part of the conversations. I looked at the charter officers' contracts. I looked at resolution 1005, which most of us, I mean, I don't remember 1005, but that was before I was on the council, which is the procedures for charter officer review, and I have a copy of that attached when it was passed out to you. Our past practices are relatively simple. Historically, we produced a contract or an agreement when a charter officer was hired, and the city has not had a history of renegotiating those contracts on an individual basis. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. I'm just saying the city hasn't had a history to do that. All charter officers have traditionally received the same cost of living increases that other management employees receive. And as far as merit increases are concerned for a charter officer, Resolution 10.05 does specifically state that each charter officer would be reviewed starting in May of each year, the review process to be done at a council meeting in June of each year, and then any merit increases that would be applied to that charter officer would be done as a result of that evaluation. Now, the issues that came up in these conversations are relatively simple. We all are familiar with the first one, especially from some of the issues that we ran across last year, is that the nature of the charter officers' positions is they're basically an at-will employee, and the city council can actually terminate them without cause, which puts them in a higher level of jeopardy than any other employee that we have in the city from that regard. They're also maxed out in their position. So a standard typical employee for the city, for example, could get a nice salary increase by going from a non-supervisory to supervisory position or so forth. City charter officers can't do that. And so due to these reasons, we discussed the three of us discussed the possibility that two things maybe should take place. That we should modify the resolution so that there is a specific time frame in which charter officer contracts are reopened. We talked about 3 years being an appropriate time frame for that, to actually do that. And that since that's not part of the original contracts that we have currently in place, that we would include that in a revision of Resolution 10.05 and spell out that would take place. Also, it was a conclusion, and this came from our chief financial officer, and it was a really good idea, I thought, that charter officer increases other than what are done for for other management employees take place at the beginning of a budget year as opposed to in interim in the budget year, because it might impact our budget if we don't do that. So even though the review process is done in June, that any merit increases that were given as a result of that June discussion would be done, take effect on October 1st. And then also there's a gigantic amount of standard items between the three contracts that are real similar. And the HR director has indicated that she would be willing to put together kind of a standard format that has all that standard stuff up front and then has in the next portion of the contract. And this, I don't think we'll have to use this for a long time, I hope, because we wouldn't really use that until we have require a new charter officer to be employed. But she felt comfortable that she could put together that so that we have a real standard structure. Basically, if you're terminated without cause, here's what you get, because each one should be standard across the boundary between the officers and so forth. Can put that together. And then the items like salary, I don't know, if we hire somebody for a charter officer position and they live in Texas and we want to help pay moving expenses, that would be a variable item in that contract. So the reason I can't do this stuff on my own, because as a council member, I'm just one person. So I brought this back to the council. I will tell you that I'm going to bring back the city attorney and I have had a conversation. He still would like for us to reopen his contract, and I'm going to talk to him about that. So, and I'm going to bring that back to you, but that's separate from this process. That's a separate step from this process. I would like to see if the council agrees for us to put this process together. One thing I missed in that would be that we'll spell out in the resolution that the contract for charter officers will be negotiated by the current mayor, whoever that is at that point in time, and they would use the chief financial officer and the HR director to assist them in that. Both of those two individuals felt like that they could work on a review committee or a contract committee, but they didn't want to be in a position of being part of the negotiation. They felt uncomfortable doing that.
Yeah, of course.
So, but they would certainly be available to assist in that process. So, as part of the revision of that resolution, we would codify that so that takes place in that process. So, got any comments from anybody? Anything?
No, I like it. I think just go forth and bring it back. I mean, that's basically what you're talking about is completely reasonable. We're not talking about making any adjustments to any contracts or salaries or anything right now. We're just talking about, this basically outlines what's already in place but hasn't been done and adds the opening of the charter officers' contracts every 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's essentially what we already have in place.
Yes.
So it's essentially what we already have in place, except the fact that the merit increases would go to October. That's different. That's the only difference. So all this other stuff is in place, except the opening of the contract. So I think it's fine. Bring it back.
Any other comments?
I just wonder, the evaluations, are they going to really be done? I know it's in there about being written, but some years nobody submits any written, they just say it in public. Working for the state, we have a real serious evaluation, that you go through from a 1 to a 5, and you're also given expectations. Now, I know in their contracts it has this stuff, but I'd like to see something about these are the expectations of the office that you're holding. And then also for the evaluation to line up, so when you're doing the rating.
I can talk to the HR director as part of putting this together about that. She actually has a form that she showed me. She's redone that even again. She's made it a little bit more, a little simpler.
But I think though that's entirely up to any individual council member as to whether or not they put something written in. I mean, because the fact of the matter is, I have conversations with the city staff, our charter officers all the time about, things I'm happy with or things I'm not so happy with. Not directing them or to that effect, but if you want, to check off a 5 or put a 3 in there or something like that, for me that's kind of like mid-level, stuff. But we're talking about the charter officers here, so I think we should have a public review. We haven't had one of those in a long time, and by public review I mean simply, you guys did a great job or you guys stink, right? Something like that. But and then I think at that time this council needs to have the discussion as to what merit increases we want to have, because we've gone forward with with just contractual obligations, which is whatever the employees of the city get, that's what our charter officers get. And, you know, I'm fine with having discussions on whether or not we should have additional increases on that. But, you know, I mean, if you want a piece of paper, put it in a file, I mean, I get it, but I think that's entirely up to the individual council members as to whether or not they want to do that.
Well, I don't see it as just a piece of paper.
I know
You
you don't.
haven't been in supervision for 20 years. It has to do about the evaluation of a person as well as going forward.
Right.
And it's identifying where they're strong, where they're a little weak, where they could grow, any hindrances. So it's not just a piece of paper that goes in a file. It should have some serious merit, and any supervisor of staff should be giving an appropriate and adequate evaluation of their employee so they can grow, get better.
I agree, and I would say, I agree with that, but I'm not any of these people's supervisor.
Well, I was just going to say, and with my
I
agreement.
don't supervise any one of these people, this body does. And that's why I would be more comfortable as a body doing it.
Right. In a typical supervisor position, you work with that person on a daily basis, 8 hours a day or better, depending on the job. Well as I talk to all 3 charter officers frequently, I'm not evaluating their daily work as what they're doing in the office. I have no idea what they're doing in the office and how they're working with other employees or anything like that. So I think a typical normal evaluation is, in my opinion, as a council member, is not useless, but I don't think it's normal. So if we have something, I don't think it can be a normal evaluation that, you know, you would do for an IT director or you would do for somebody else. It's got to be something that fits the criteria of what you guys do as a job from our perspective.
Okay, let me suggest something. Do you have a, Ms. Carla, do you have an issue if I work with the HR director on these concerns and maybe trying to come up with some type of a format that would fit the concerns the council has expressed on that?
Sure, but there is some evaluation forms through the International City County Managers Association that deal with this, and I can get that information to her as well.
Okay, all right. So what I'll do is I'll talk to her about. I know she showed me a new evaluation form that basically was a combination of the 1 through 5 plus the comment section and so forth. I personally. I know how big a hassle those are, but I agree with you 100%. It's invaluable in rating an individual. The problem with doing it without setting expectation levels is you don't have a basis for the rating, and that's what I'd like to talk to her about. Maybe we can get that information you've got from them, and then we can go from there with that. If it's okay with the council, and what I'm hearing is I'll come back with this resolution change and with a little bit more detail. Now, I will tell you guys that I am going to have a conversation with the city attorney because he's asked me to continue with that review of his contract, and I'm going to bring some information back to you on that for us to deal with on that particular thing, okay? Yeah. That's separate from this. That's a separate issue from this, okay? And I will bring that back.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Also, that form that you're talking about that the HR director I'd like to have a copy of that put in each one of our boxes, because you say you've seen it. I've never seen it.
Okay.
I'd like to see what that form is and what's on there, so that when that time comes, we can obviously make a decision of how we want to rate them.
Jeanette, can you take care of doing that and get a copy of it for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you. Okay, that was my turn. Where's my agenda?
I have nothing further this evening.
Oh,
Vice
he's
Mayor
next?
Hill. Yes, sir. And then Member Jones and McPartland, then me, in that direction.
Okay, we're going down here. Mr. McPartland, do you have anything?
No, fine, thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir. I attended the last Beach and Shoreline Committee meeting, and I've had some comments from people around about some of the derelict boats in the Indian River. There have been several that has been identified. They're waiting on their approval from FWC now, so we should have, in some point down the road, I'm not going to say a date and time because they don't know. They're waiting on Fish and Wildlife to approve that those to be removed from our lagoon. So they are working. The county is working on that and removing all the derelict vessels from our lagoon. So
good. All right, Mr. Nunn, I think you're next.
All right, I would just say thank you to all the staff for everything they do, and been watching a lot of different city committees and boards lately, and we have some great people doing some great work, all volunteers on all of our boards, so thank you to you. I would remind citizens, please be patient. I know you all want the vaccine and you want it now, but there are 50,000 senior citizens over the age of 65 in Indian River County, and I think we've vaccinated less than 3,000 of them. So remember, when you're trying to get a vaccine, there's the possibility of 45,000 or better people all trying to get in and get a vaccine at the same time. So please be patient. Hopefully the new system and public's being involved, it'll work better, but just be patient. You will get it. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Thank you.
All right, unless someone has anything for the good of the order? Yes, sir.
One last thing, Mayor. I turned 38 years old tomorrow, my birthday, so.
Don't let him fool you. A Social Security check has been sent to him. All right, we are adjourned.